972 1408. And so if you've got a question here, if you've got a comment here on this whole area of deliverance that we've been talking about, and I want to move on to help us a little bit of how we can be assured of who we are and where we are in Christ, and we want to deal with some of those issues. But if you've got anything which is from a personal issue or anything from a biblical issue or anything from this realm, please do give us a call, 0208 972 1408. If you've emailed in, they will be around somewhere on the server, and we will be able to get them down later, but I can't deal with them at the moment because we can't make contact and read them at this point in time. So get over the phone, 0208 972 1408. While we're waiting for that to happen, we mentioned Ephesians chapter 6, the spiritual warfare. We mentioned this is the armour. I mean, there are some people sitting out there, because we've mentioned demonology, we've mentioned demons, and we mentioned that Christians in some ways can be affected, and all that, they're sitting there absolutely petrified.
Indeed.
And we want to deal with that issue. Can you take us through a little bit of how you guys see Ephesians 6, how you see it affecting our lives, of what we need to do, of how we need to do it from that point of view, so we can be safe, and we can know security in Christ with this armour. Michael, start with you a bit.
Well, I'll start from verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. So all those need to know out there that the Lord is strong, and the Lord is perfectly able to deal with all these things if we bring them to him. His power is awesome and his might is awesome. When we ask people to put on the armour of God, this invisible spiritual armour, we know people do this in church. I've seen people do it. I've seen people put the helmet on. I've done it myself. And I've stood there with a shield and that sort of thing. Sometimes it gives people confidence to believe there is an armour there. But when we think about that, be strong in the Lord, how can we be strong in the Lord? Well, believing that he is who he is, giving him total authority over our lives, reading the word and studying his word and praying and those sort of things. That's how we become strong in the Lord. And the armour, if you like, are the benefits of being strong in the Lord. This is the these are the mechanics of God's power. You're putting it on the breastplate of righteousness, the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, etc., etc.
We'll come back to that, but we've got a couple of callers on the line, which we'll take first. And the first one is David from Cardiff. Hi, David.
Hiya, Doug.
How you doing?
Very well. Hiya, JT and Mike.
Hello there. Hello, David.
Yeah, what it is, I mean, obviously, I was a JW for 18 years. And you've got this situation with JWs that it really is a satanic-minded organisation. They see Satan everywhere. And, of course, I find this quite disturbing, and I still do. I mean, I've come to Christ just on a year or so now. One of the things they did when I first got involved was they come to the house and they pointed out certain ornaments and pictures. I mean, there was supposed to be a face in one, and all sorts of things. And I had sort of music, status quo or stuff like this. Nothing out of the ordinary. But they insisted I burn it because they could let demons in. And in fact, they actually stood over me while I did burn it. So, I mean, I found that extremely frightening. I really did. And along with the sister-in-law's behaviour that you've already discussed earlier, the sort of stuff that she tended to do. And the things that she's got in her house, I mean, it's quite remarkable. It's like going into the Hammer House of Horror, her house. Is this one of these areas where this influence can get in? Have you got to be careful what you bring into your home?
JT, first of all to you.
Well, what I would say as well to Dave is that there are certain Christians who are a bit like that as well. We live in a world of symbols, and to operate, if you're going to have symbolic things in your house and they symbolise the wrong things, we'll kick them out. If there are things which are clearly immoral, kick them out. But you know, a lot of people who are practitioners of wicked stuff and are into the occult will often use tokens and items and invest little statues with supposed power, etc., etc., etc. I think rather than us jumping around thinking, if I've got a picture of a frog in the house, should I kick it out, you know, get rid of it and burn it, which is, you know, some people would say it's frog-like spirit in Book of Revelation. Right. Hey, a frog is a frog. I would say that if there are things which are overtly satanic in nature or in symbol, and you know, and they're there for ornamentation, like I have occult books in my house, and they're downstairs in my study, and they're there for my research, and I wouldn't recommend that every Christian has occult books in their house, but I wouldn't put them on display in the living room.
Yes.
And they're there for a reason. They're not there for a game or ornamentation. But if people have occult related or evil or immoral stuff which is on display, get rid of it. Why do you want it in your house?
Michael, do you want to?
Yes, similar views to JT. I would add some times music. Sometimes we have to be careful with the music we listen to, because sometimes it enters us subconsciously. We're not always listening to the lyrics, and there are bands out there. You know, I'm old enough to remember the 60s, and I was a big record collector in the 60s, and I adored the Rolling Stones. And when you listen to some of the lyrics of the Stones records, that, you know, now you didn't listen to the lyrics then, you just dance to them. Right. But now when you sit down and listen to them, you think, oh, I didn't know they were saying that. Or, oh, that's a bit risque. Things like Let's Spend the Night Together and, you know, Sympathy with the Devil and stuff like that. So I think we do have to be careful. As we become God conscious, I believe we become conscious to these other things as well, that maybe we accepted for years and didn't take any notice of.
I think sometimes, Dave, we can take it too far.
Yeah.
And we can take it to the nth degree. I think what both JT and Michael have said is, yes, we need to be aware, are those things good, honest, are they right, are they true, the things that the Lord wants to do with us, in us and through us. I think there can also be times when we can allow ornaments, especially things that have been in some way blessed, quote, from an occult point of view, that can have effect in our home. But I think we do have to be sensible with that and not take it too far from that aspect, because what actually we then come into is superstition. And we haven't touched upon that yet, but the whole area of superstition means I think there's something wrong when there isn't, but because I think there is. And that becomes a major problem for us. I mean, have you worked through this over the years, Dave? Or are you in a better understanding of it, as it were, now?
Well, as I'm coming to Christ, I mean, I was very, very sensitive to these things, because whenever you had anybody around for a meal, they'd always find something.
Yeah.
And it would be there, you know, they got a favourite saying, "I'm stumbled by that, brother."
Yes.
Can you burn it, please?
Yeah.
And I've seen people that have come to Kingdom Halls that are talking about rampages in their house and all sorts of stuff. And I do find this very disturbing. I think that, I mean, as I've come to Christ, I mean, it's oversensitive. And what JT has said and Michael has said about kind of Christian that's actually following Christ be totally demonized. Well, I don't think you can, to be honest. I mean, JT said you can walk away. I agree with that. I just think I've been in an environment, really, for a while that's oversensitive to it, but nevertheless we need to be aware. So I just thought I'd ask those questions, because I mean it literally looked like the bailiffs had been here one night because they took half me stuff. You thought you'd have me settee. I mean, I had a settee from a second-hand shop. They said burn it. Who's been sitting on that? Well,
I mean, JT's got so, but that is exactly where it gets ridiculous. From that point, because you buy a new one, who made it?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's JT. You wanted to say something else?
Just one thing. First, I think Dave, I think you're doing really well anyway. So Keep on rolling, brother. You're doing fine.
I'll do my best, mate.
The second thing is that Jehovah's Witnesses are a typical religious organisation who can have all the fear of the devil and of the occult and of evil forces, but have none of the power to be able to deal with it. So
That's
no wonder they're scared.
Yeah, very true.
And a quick story: I work in Zambia a lot, and I remember one day I asked a room full of 100